Good morning, everyone, and let me warmly welcome you to this last edition of the spring series of UBC TALKS webinar. Our today's topic is Intelligent Transport Solutions Piloting. My name is Olena Zinchuk, and I will be your moderator for today. And behind the curtain with me is also present Maria Andreeva, who's providing the technical support. So, a few words about the technicalities. For those of you especially who are using GoToWebinar for the first time or are present at our UBC TALKS event for the first time, you can select how to connect to the audio with your computer or as a phone call. However, all the audience by default is muted, so your microphones are disabled. However, we encourage the interaction through the chat, where you can at any time write your questions to the presenters and organizers. And note that the questions posted by other audience members are not visible to you. So do not let the empty chat field to shy you away from asking your own questions. And those will be addressed in the Q&A session midway through the webinar and during the discussion part at the end. In the event of the time shortage, any unresponded questions will be receiving their replies via emails afterwards. And the webinar itself is recorded, so that all the registered participants will receive materials afterwards later this week. Before we go into the program today, I would like to briefly introduce the Union of the Baltic Cities, a Sustainable Cities Commission that I'm working for as a project coordinator. Our network consists of 70 municipalities from around 10 countries of the Baltic Sea, and we are one of the 6 thematic commissions. We deal with broadly treated sustainability issues, in particular topics that we work through different projects, processes, campaigns, and events include urban planning and sustainable urban development, water management, energy management and energy efficiency, local climate work, and also urban mobility. And this has been a topic for both our most recent one from 2 weeks back and also the present UBC TALKS webinar. So regarding today's program, we will have a possibility to hear 2 main presentations, one introducing the HUPMOBILE project and its activities directed towards piloting intelligent transport solutions. And the other is an example of Agile piloting conducted by the city of Helsinki in the Jätkäsaari district. So the speakers will address the assembled questions during the Q&A session. And after this, HUPMOBILE partner cities, which are Tallinn, Hamburg, Turku and Riga, will present their own ITS mini pilots. In the end, there's time reserved for more discussion and questions to the cities. And this was a brief introduction of today's webinar, and I am happy to invite our first speaker, Ralf-Martin Soe, who works as a development manager at ITL Digital Lab Estonia, and he is leading the ITS activities in HUPMOBILE project. So hello, Ralf, good morning. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you so much for taking your time to attend this webinar. Yes, I'm very happy and honored to introduce, first of all, HUPMOBILE project and then also our mini-piloting approach. So I'm Ralf-Martin Soe. My main role is actually as a director of one smart city unit at Tallinn University of Technology, and this HUPMOBILE project is one of my or only external hobby project that I'm working with, as well as it is very interesting and very much related to the research interest of myself. Maybe some of you know me from Tallinn University of Technology side as well, so it is the same person. I'm doing a very brief intro also to the project, it is, as already mentioned, a mobility project with a full name of Holistic Urban and Peri-Urban Mobility, and short name HUPMOBILE. And the project is funded from European Commission through its Interreg Baltic Sea region call, mainly for finding solutions in a field of so mainly for dealing and finding solutions for sustainable transport. And the project is already quite well started. We started 1st of January 2019, and it runs at least until the mid of 2021, although it might be extended for another 6 months as well. And the total budget is 2 million euros. Out of this, European Regional Development Fund is investing 1.5 million. And the project is coordinated by Aalto University. So we are just saving the time when giving me opportunity to introduce it, but it is run, coordinated, and initiated by Aalto University, and it has 8 key partners. So Aalto was already mentioned, and then we have 4 cities, cities of Turku, Hamburg, Altona, Tallinn, and Riga through its energy agency, and so 4 Baltic Sea cities. And then we have another key research partner from Sweden, KTH, and also UBC, Union of Baltic Cities, and Association of ICT and Telecommunications through its small lab called IT Digital Lab, which I here represent as well. So this is the project in general. If you have any specific interest or comments regarding the project, feel free to approach the HUPMOBILE project website, and I'm very sure that the main project manager Tero is happy to provide additional information, or you can always come to me as well, and then I can put in contact with Aalto University. So now I go to the intelligent transport solution or system work package, and which is coordinated by ITL Digital, and it has 3 subtasks. First subtask is to build this ITS competence network, organizing seminars, webinars, conferences, other events to bring together Baltic Sea region ITS companies, researchers, and most importantly, cities. And then we have another task on ITS minipilots, which is what this webinar is about. And thirdly, we have also a bigger approach to put more weight on one minipilot through adaptable traffic lights, which will be introduced later from the city of Tallinn as well. And then later in the follow-up session, you will hear about agile piloting in general as well. So I think you will have a quite good overview. But the main logic here is that we wanted to have some street-level testing related to this project as well, so that we actually go and test some ideas in real environment that are related to urban challenges. So very briefly about the concept. Later I will give some additional papers as well. If somebody is more interested, feel free to check the papers attached or approach me. But the logic of mini pilots is quite straightforward. But first of all, it needs to be city challenge based. So we are facing actual challenges what the cities are having. Secondly, we are interested in promoting open selection of novel ideas, or novel ways of doing things. So idea is that to test out something new, or as a solution or as a procedure as well. And another thing is that it is very limited funding. In this case, it has been very much directed towards smaller companies and startups. And if cities are promoting them, obviously there is a candy for participating companies. But if it is a very good test case, there is a potential to be developed into service as well. And we have seen this happening as well. So this is the main thing. And also, like, companies are doing their own internal R&D activities as well, and so that could be part of that. So expectations are that there is actual concept or prototype with street level or city level trial, and tested 3 people and stakeholders. So this is the main concept. Obviously, the reality is not as it is on the concept every time, but this is what we would like to see. And the approach in HUPMOBILE really much follows it. So aiming on focusing the challenges, mobility challenges of HUPMOBILE cities. Cities of Turku, Hamburg, Tallinn and Riga, and one mini pilot is budgeted around 20,000 euros. Most cities, or actually all cities, need to do some kind of procurement activities. Some are doing innovation challenge type of procurement, although it is also possible to do city traditional procurement. So we are not having any strong guidelines on this. And more importantly, for all the external cities, follower cities, other companies, stakeholders interested in this, we are also drafting a policy roadmap for our cities, how to apply this kind of mini pilots, and how to deal with increased mobility and environment challenges in the cities. How the mini pilots can be chosen. So this is another part of the concept, and actual choices pretty much tailor-made. So it ranges from city to city, but in general we are interested that this mini pilot shows some innovation potential, shows some growth or scalability potential, and also that has a strong team and is user driven. But obviously, the actual idea and selection criteria differ from city to city. But these are the expectations, although to some extent maybe they are too high because the budget is really small, as mentioned. And I'm finalizing this with one example from another project, Rinne Smart Mobility, where we started this mini piloting. That was another Interreg project led by the city of Helsinki, and we were responsible for a few mini-pilots there jointly with Forum Virum Helsinki. And so one example here is we had 4 or 5 mini-pilots, and I could have a different session on this as we were actually quite good. But just mobility based on mobile positioning data of Estonian phone numbers in these red, it's a higher intensity. And we actually saw that with a mini-pilot, we can actually see what passengers are doing, and during this COVID time, it would be actually interesting to redo it as well, just to see how it has influenced mobility, cross-border mobility. And secondly, we did see for analyzing what the Finnish phone numbers are doing in Estonia during one typical week. This is just like one example what is possible as a mini-pilot, but you will have more examples from the next presentation as well. And so the brief intro from my side, and in general, if you have any questions, feel free to approach me. And I'm happy to share some wrap-up papers on the mini-piloting concept of this finest smart mobility project as well. And about this webinar, I would like to say as the last sentence from my side that we are introducing those mini-piloting ideas of the cities first time also internally. So we decided that let's do it more like an open discussion, and let's involve other stakeholders as well. So it is quite privileged for you to listen in actual development progress of cities involved, and I'm very grateful for all the cities to actually coming and showing up and introducing their plans, and also challenges, because it is a very difficult time for those mini-pilots as well. And I'm even more grateful, so to say, for our next speaker that invest most time to this webinar to introduce the Forum Virum Helsinki's approach to agile mini-pilots in the Jätkäsaari mobility lab. So Janne is coming up next, but we have also one question for the audience, if I remember it correctly.
Yes, the poll is running. Yeah, and we're now collecting the responses.
Okay, so thank you so much. And the question is quite straightforward. Have you been involved in this kind of piloting activities from the city's perspective or from outside stakeholders? So it'd be very interesting to see reaction from the audience as well. So this is all from my side. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm hoping that you will enjoy this webinar.
Okay, so looks like for majority of our participants, the ITS piloting is not something they have been partaking in before. Even more reasons to listen carefully and to learn from experiences of others from HUPMOBILE partner cities, but also from the city of Helsinki. Do you have something to add, Ralf? Is it expected?
It is expected, and it is definitely something on one hand which is very important for cities to test out new ideas, and secondly, this is the reason why we are organizing this webinar as well, and this is the reason why we wanted to make it open for external participants as well. But first of all, we saw that also internally within our consortium, not that many participants and cities have been involved in this kind of approach. And secondly, it really is something, I would say that the city of Helsinki, both on the city level and on its innovation company Forum Virum's level as well, have been forerunners, I would say even in Europe and globally, involving some other Finnish cities as well. So it really is something which is coming from Finland. There is a bit different approach in Amsterdam and other cities as well, but it really is something that I would say that the Helsinki region is very strong in, and we are trying to put this more into other cities as well.
Okay, so thank you, Ralf, for introducing the project and also the ITS concept. We move to Helsinki then, and our next presenter is Janne Rinne, project manager from Forum Virum Helsinki, and he will bring about the existing example of Agile piloting done in Jätkäsaari Mobility Lab. The floor is yours, Janne.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about our mobility lab and the Agile piloting program of it. My name is Janne Rinne. I work for Forum Virum Helsinki, which is the innovation company fully owned by the city of Helsinki, non-profit company, doing quite a lot of development projects with external funding, always in close cooperation with the city of Helsinki. Yeah, so basically we are about 50 people based in Helsinki, working on different smart city themes, digitalization, whether it's IoT, urban wayfinding, mobility, energy efficiency, resource efficiency, or health and well-being, or schools. We are involved in many different themes. But I'm working for the smart mobility team, and I'm coordinating from our part Jätkäsaari Mobility Lab, which is an initiative run together with the city of Helsinki. So basically the coordinating companies are the city of Helsinki and Forum Virum Helsinki as the innovation company owned by the city, and then we have public transport agency, different city departments also taking part in this mobility lab initiative. So basically Jätkäsaari is a neighborhood in Helsinki, and the Jätkäsaari Mobility Lab is a lively ecosystem and open platform for co-creating new mobility innovations for functional and livable cities. Basically what we do is we try to enable different kind of piloting and experimentation activities for different kind of actors in the city of Helsinki, and we are concentrating these activities on a given geographical area for some specific reasons in order to create synergies between the individual projects, and also in terms of contacting the residents and stakeholders. It's sometimes a bit easier to have several projects running at the same time in the same place. So very briefly about the context where we operate. So basically the objectives of the Jätkäsaari Mobility Lab. On the left-hand side, you have the business and innovation oriented objectives, meaning that we want to do a good testbed and innovation environment for smart mobility. We want to have better services and solutions for residents, improve the quality of their life. We want to create references and new business for companies, SME startups. We want to improve practices within the city to support innovations, and also act as an umbrella for smart mobility projects in Helsinki. Sometimes it's easier to communicate under one title instead of 20 different projects. And on the right-hand side, we have let's say the urban development related objectives. So the mobility solutions we push, they need to be smooth, they need to promote smooth traffic mobility, safe traffic mobility, and sustainable. So we don't want to promote stuff that goes against these objectives. Very briefly, these are basically the building blocks of the mobility lab. We have the urban test area, Jätkäsaari neighborhood. We have a possibility to purchase some of the smart infra things to enable piloting. We have cooperation with residents. We do have a co-creation space and showroom for the ecosystem. We can facilitate and help with the business and investor contacts. We do quite a lot of networking activities, and then we have the program for Agile piloting, of which I am responsible on forum. So we are basically at Virium Innovation Company is responsible for the Agile piloting program, and I'm coordinating that component from our side. Very briefly about the area, it's a central neighborhood. No need to go to details. And there's a slide about the resident cooperation. So we have run several different projects in the same area, and we have built like continuous cooperation and participatory co-creative things with the residents. So we have a pool of people who are interested in participating, and we promote all the time our activities to residents in a very clear language. And we do have in the startup campus, we do have this new, fresh, open co-creation space and showroom for companies to demonstrate the pilots and solutions. And these are the basic details about the lab. So if you're interested in finding about the possibilities that we can offer or the prospects for collaboration, please look at the websites and contact me or Juha from the city, and we can have a more detailed discussion about that. There's a question which I will reply in the end. Remind me if I forgot. But then we go to the actual topic, meaning the Agile piloting program. So basically the roots of the Agile piloting program as a model is in Smart Kalasatama, Smart City District, and the program was starting around 4 or 5 years ago in there, where they wanted to create a concept or a framework for co-creating, prototyping, learning by doing, and creating ecosystems around different smart city solutions on the energy efficiency, well-being, etc., also on mobility. And the basic concept is that these Agile pilots or experiments, as we say sometimes, they are these small kind of tests of different services or technologies that are from 1 month to 6 months. The key idea is to co-develop an experiment in the real-life urban environment with the residents, with the companies, and other key stakeholders. The model has been put in the in a leaflet or a book, cookbook for Agile piloting, and more than 20 pilots were run in Kalasatama, or 50 pilots in Helsinki and in different cities in Finland, and also recently the city of Stavanger in Norway adopted the model and are at the moment doing the first rounds of the pilots, which is very nice. About the cookbook, we are at the very moment now making a second edition of it based on the recent experiences, so you should hear about that during June already. Let me see if I can change the slides. Okay, co-creating a value. So Agile piloting as a model is the key idea is to co-create value for everybody who is involved. It needs to provide something to everybody who is involved, otherwise they will not be committed or will not invest their resources in it. So basically it's for creating market references for the startups and SMEs who are actually doing the pilots. And you can build networks and partnerships and ecosystems around the small pilots or the rounds or the piloting rounds. It's a new way of engaging citizens. And also for the city, it's a way to deal with new emerging technologies and services and figure out what to do with these kind of things that appear from the private sector. So finding future use cases for these things. We always highlight that it's about co-creation. So basically this is the process of Agile piloting in a very simplified form. But basically it starts with defining a focus for the piloting round, or the piloting program. Usually in there you involve city departments, planners, in some cases residents, some other key stakeholders, for example, corporate partners of big companies, if they are relevant to the activities. So you involve them and define the focus together. On basis of that, you make the open call, which is technically a call for tenders or call for offers. So it's a procurement of the pilots or the experiments. And then, as mentioned in the previous presentation, you do have a selection criteria according to which you select the pilots, and then you go to the actual experimentation, which basically is the heart of the whole exercise. So basically in the experimentation phase, you do the actual piloting. You throw the service or the solution into streets for the people, promote it, and experiment real life setting with real people, see what happens, document, report, and figure out way to overcome the obstacles and the new things that pop up when you do something that is this practical. You use the city as the lab or the test bed, as a test bed, as a platform for testing the ideas, and there you could use the infra buildings, the available data, the existing services, etc. And you try to involve the whole ecosystem and the key stakeholders in the activities to gain more impact. Point 5 is learning and reflection, and this is something I really want to highlight, that with this kind of small pilots, you cannot really change the world. So it's, for at least for us, it's like the key objective of a piloting round is learning. So basically you just put it in practice, try to document it, analyze it, and learn as much as possible, and reflect on the findings. And there you should, it's very useful to have an evaluation partner involved, or to have expertise on evaluation in the consortium to document the things, and also make some kind of wrap-up analysis about the things and the key findings. And the last important point about the thing is that we want to scale up. Of course, we want that the individual services or solutions scale up if they are good, but that's not really the only objective of scaling up. We want to have a bit more holistic view on scaling up from the city side, meaning that we want to generate new understanding, learnings, results that scale up and influence on bigger processes. We want to scale up the cooperation models. Some kind of cooperation or collaboration works. It should be used elsewhere. As I told, you can build partnerships and ecosystems and networks around these small pilots, which can be very valuable after the actual piloting phase. And then, of course, for the companies, it's very important to have some kind of prospect for scaling up. But that is something that we usually don't promise in the end, because then it's very pilot specific. Something may become commercially viable directly, but some might not. So basically, it's also a learning process for the companies to steer in the right direction after the pilot. What do we offer to piloting teams? We are the facilitating organization for the piloting programs. We orchestrate the whole thing. So what do we do for the companies or the piloting teams? Well, there's a small financial compensation for the pilots. This is important in particular for the small companies, but for bigger companies, the actual real life setting might be the key motivation to be involved. But still, there is a small amount of money, usually up to 10,000 euros. In some cases, it has been until even 20,000 euros. But in any case, quite a small compensation if you talk about the pilot of several months. But what we do offer, and what's our speciality or unique selling point in a way is that we do have the real world urban testing environment. We know what can be done actually physically in the street. We can help with the permits, help with the bureaucracy, find the right people from the city departments. We can find the resident co-creators, or we do have the contacts for the residents, so they may become test users for the service. We do have contacts to local key stakeholders. As I told, there is a synergy benefit of operating in one area, so we know the big hotels, the big retail sellers, the port, the other big actors in the area, so there's already a contact, so we can start the collaboration from an established foundation, so we don't have to start from the zero with every single pilot. We provide facilitated support for experimentation. Of course, the companies get references for their products and services, and we have been also I can maybe say directly that we've been quite efficient in getting media visibility for these small pilots, so that's very much valued by the companies as well. Just a couple of examples about the pilots we run in the Perille Asti project, last mile project in English, conducted in Jätkäsaari neighborhood. So we had a smart parking payment integration for car sharing, Drive Now Finland. Then we had a couple of cargo bike experiments with logistics and for sharing among the residents. We had a boat ride sharing platform, Boat. There was a water bus experiment. An Estonian company, Bergman, did a smart pedestrian crosswalk installment in the street, and there was a hobby ride experiment for football juniors. I will not show the videos about these things, but the links are in the presentation, so you can check them from there when we share the materials, or you just go to Forum Helsinki's YouTube channel and look from there. So these are basically the kind of ideas, and then we have had a lot of data related pilots and experiments and also some other solutions, but just to give you ideas. Then in our current project, 2 data experiments, the other one about monitoring the traffic to the port, and the other one is data about the e-scooters and other micro mobility providers. And this kind of data is now gathered from the operators and presented on a dashboard, and the city has the view to this thing, so they know how e-scooters are used in the city, providing data for better planning. We do have another round of pilots coming. Going into details, check the website or our website from Forum Helsinki. Again, we will search from 2 to 4 Agile pilots to be conducted in the Jätkäsaari area. Then a couple of words. I think I have 10 more minutes about telling a bit about my insights about how to facilitate this kind of piloting program. I think this kind of thing is quite relevant to you if you're conducting the mini pilots in different cities. This will be brief, so don't hesitate to contact me afterwards, and I can share your more materials and tell you about experiences, and we can agree on a telco or Skype or something and discuss more, because I also want to hear what's happening in other cities and hear your plans and experiences. Yeah, so Agile piloting is about co-creating value. So actually, like I said, if we want to have committed people, committed planners, committed companies, committed stakeholders, or committed residents, we need to provide value to everybody, whether it's a reference or money or better services or new data for better planning or policy making. Maybe some things on the title level that we will highlight in this pocket book for Agile piloting. I think one of the key things that we really want to put effort on is engagement and co-creation, because I think it's quite, let's say, easy and straightforward to just procure the pilots. But in order to have impact, you really need to engage all the relevant parties. Yeah, so about engaging the stakeholders, I think the first tip is to use existing networks. Creating this kind of networks for communication or ecosystem starting from zero, it's quite a heavy job. So first, mapping the key networks, gatekeeper organizations, important individuals who can reach more people. I think it's very useful to identify those and then make them committed, and then use those networks. Also, I think building commitment is very important, and you cannot start building the trust and commitment in the final phase when you are closing the pilots. But I think the first thing you should do is to find the right people and talk with them and find the trust and the mutual goals for the exercise, and then build on the trust and commitment that you generate in the very first phase, already when you define the scope of the whole piloting round. For fostering co-creation, as I explained in the process slide, the co-creation goes through all the way. So already defining the focus for the call can be co-creative. We have had, for example, residents involved in the very beginning of the piloting round, meaning that we have had electronic surveys to the people of Jätkäsaari, and then we had different workshops, 4 workshops, where we go together the results of the survey with the residents, and also inviting the local planners, traffic planners and land use planners. So basically just really inviting people there in a co-creative way in the very beginning. So that's quite a nice way to start the whole thing, and it's a lot easier to motivate people to participate if they can influence in the very beginning the whole thing. I think for the co-creation in practice, you do workshops, different kind of events, meetups, these kind of things, where you can invite the different people to participate. Then about learning and reflection, I think it's important to understand that mini pilots and agile pilots or experiments, their scale is quite small. So you must understand that there's a limited amount of resources that can be done on the or dedicated to one pilot or piloting round. And we always think that the most valuable thing that comes out of these piloting rounds is learning and generating the new information, understanding, identifying the problems and barriers that a given topic might meet when you put it in practice. So learning, documenting, evaluating and reflecting is very important, and somehow I encourage you to think of ways to document your pilots and share the results with the relevant stakeholders. I'm saying this because this also takes quite a lot of time. So also invest your resources for learning and reflection, not only to the actual implementation of the pilot, but it's a very pity if you run a good pilot and you get important results, and then you don't have resources for spreading the learnings or disseminating the results or reflecting with the planners and city representatives. So make sure that you have time and resources for that as well. Also, if you have a possibility to invite evaluation partner, either university, a technical university, even a consultant, to do the evaluation part of it, it's very useful if you have that kind of expertise available. Yeah, I think scaling up thing I already mentioned, that it starts from the beginning, so you shouldn't start thinking about scaling up the results when you have finished your pilot, but usually the scaling up comes from the committed organizations and committed individuals. So please make sure that you have those in the very beginning, and the scaling up is a lot easier in the end. And I think the last thing to highlight about our tips is the importance of communication. The Agile pilots are very concrete. Usually, they are easy to communicate. They are a powerful communication tools for the city to raise some kind of challenge or a topic to media or public discussion. But the other part of the communication is that in order to run a successful piloting program, you really need to communicate well, both internally with the piloting teams and also externally towards the media and the residents and the wider public. So make sure you also have some kind of communication plan in place for the pilots and piloting rounds. The last content slide here is that we really want to scale up the learnings. That's the whole point of small pilots. So you don't spend too much effort on preparing the things, but you actually make a good topic, good focus, throw the pilots on the street, and then document and try to scale up. What works, then try to find some kind of continuation for that. If it doesn't work, you can drop it because you didn't really invest too much resources on it. So scaling up is not only scaling up individual services or solutions or technologies, but instead we want to always say that we want to reuse the best cooperation models and share the practices. The experiments provide results, and those results should be, of course, translated and put forward for the city and for the planners and policymakers. So that's the reason I was highlighting the importance of documentation. And also these pilots are small, but you can actually build quite big ecosystems or networks around these given topics. For example, green infrastructure is one nice example from our side where a small Agile pilot led to bigger cooperation, and then from that to bigger cooperation to big EU project with about green infrastructure. So basically, if you treat or address some theme in one Agile pilot, the thing is not done. You can actually scale up also the collaboration, not just the individual commercial service. And the last part that I say is that we are very close to finalizing the graphical layout of the pocket book. So that will be available for everybody to see, for people who want to innovate in urban environment to run this kind of piloting programs. We present the model for Agile piloting, but I think it's useful for reading for different models as well. If you run mini pilots with a bit slightly different approach, I think many of the insights from us are quite useful for you as well. So stay in touch and follow Forum Virium's website and Jätkäsaari Mobility Labs website, and subscribe to newsletters, and you'll hear when it's out. I think that's my presentation. I probably went a bit over time, but I think now it's the time for questions.
Thank you, Janne. We still have a poll based on your presentation, so let's engage the audience. And based on Janne's presentation, how do you feel about agile piloting, which aspect do you consider most important one when initiating such piloting or when participating or planning it for your city? So let's take around 1 minute to vote for this. Unfortunately, again, panelists, many of our cities in the HUPMOBILE cannot vote themselves, but at least the audience hopefully can. So we will find out. Okay, so luckily we have a very devoted, idealistic audience today for whom financial matters do not play important role. However, the real world test environment is important with the factual end users. Also the facilitation of the process as well as context to the cities. Perhaps media visibility and promotion was neglected a bit, even though Janne repeated a few times about importance of communication. So what do you think, Janne, about this?
I think this is something quite expected. So I'm surprised that I don't know how many companies are in the audience, but sometimes the financial compensation is a bit higher. But also my experience from the previous discussions is that this living lab setting with the possibilities to experiment in an urban environment is basically the thing that is the most valued by the companies. So there are different kind of funding organizations with more resources, I mean financial resources, but we are not a funding organization. We are a living lab orchestrator and we provide this, and there are not too many organizations of our kind, at least not in Helsinki.
Okay, thank you, Janne, for your presentation and all the insights about how you did the piloting in Jätkäsaari, how Forum Virium is doing it. Sadly, not a part of HUPMOBILE project, but definitely an inspiring example for us. Please stay online. We will begin the Q&A session now, and majority of questions, which I already can see, are directed to you. So I guess we will begin with those. One question in here is why Jätkäsaari was chosen as a test area, and you partially touched upon the past that there has been piloting already before, but maybe something else you would like to highlight about the district itself.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. Well, why specifically Jätkäsaari? The reason is that globally speaking, I think that traffic and mobility challenges in Finland are quite small if you compare to cities like London, Paris, etc. But in Jätkäsaari, there's actually a real challenge, let's say, with the mobility, because there's the port, the passenger port with the ferry terminal to Tallinn, and you might be surprised, but it's the busiest passenger port in Europe, due to the Helsinki-Tallinn traffic, and most of the people come through Jätkäsaari. So there's fluctuating traffic with real traffic peaks and traffic problems. It's an area under construction, and you can only exit the area from 3 bridges with car, so there are bottlenecks. So basically, to have a real mobility challenge is of course in a way unfortunate, but for a mobility lab, it is a good that we actually have concrete stuff to solve. So that's basically the thing, besides the history of mobility-related projects in there.
I have one question for those as well. I mean, our audience has one question. So when you showed the pilots from the previous 2-year time frame, have some of them survived and perhaps turned into more permanent activities, or they have been, like you mentioned, just tried and discontinued in favor of the new upcoming ideas? Is there something you would like to mention?
Yeah, both ways. So basically, you have had those that didn't find any continuation. So basically, the idea was tried, didn't work, it was dropped. Not gonna mention those by name, but then there are companies that did the pilot and really steered the development to other direction and are still operating with a slightly different approach. And then you have the kind of pilots that continue more or less as they did. So it was quite close to ready. Let's say that it went so good that it's quite similar to the continuation. I can mention, for example, the hobby ride thing. The local football club did a kind of hobby ride sharing for the kids, where they took the kids straight from the school to the sports hall in a minivan, and then they got a discount for the exercise turns in the sports facilities, and somehow converted that saving into paying for the rides. And that was the model that is still after the pilot. It's still ongoing in the club, and they have a coordinator for this activity, and they are scaling it up. They also made a guidebook for other sports clubs to apply the same approach. You can also find that from Virion website. So that's one thing that really survived. Then the parking integration for car sharing, they also did a 3-month pilot, and then this kind of system kept operating so it survived. It stayed in place for 1 year. Unfortunately, Drive Now Finland then ceased all operations in whole Finland, so that went with that. But still, if not, I think this would have been still in place. So at least 2 examples of surviving pilots.
There's more, and we have time to address a few more questions from the citizens side. So firstly, do you have some statistics how active the residents are and how do they participate in those initiatives? So this is more from the participation side. And there's also a question, how do you encourage citizens to submit their own ideas? How do you publish the call and how do you announce those things? So sorry that I'm piling them up, but they are about this particular target group of the residents of the area.
I forgot the first one.
Let's begin with the participation. Do you how do you evaluate the participation rate, or do you have some numbers or percentages?
Yeah, it's done usually it's pilot specific, and usually the piloting team or the company is taking track of how many people participate. We have examples where there has been hundreds of people. For example, this one cargo bike sharing pilot, they had 400 registered users, of which I think a bit more than 100 use the service actively, which I think in this area is quite a nice outcome for a short, quick pilot. The hobby ride thing also, they had hundreds of kids and hundreds of rides. But then you have had pilots which have really had trouble of finding the end users, and it's really depends on the pilot how appealing or attractive or useful it is in the end for the residents. So we don't have compiled numbers, but altogether until so far in those 8 pilots, I'd say you have around 1,000 residents already participating in some form or another. Of course, there are active ones and dropouts and all that, and more active core group, but still, yeah.
And Jätkäsaari is still actively developing area, so there would be an increase in residents constantly as they populate the.
Yeah, but of course we have to find new ways to motivate people, and people have limited time and they cannot invest. It's out of their free will. They are not usually. Sometimes they might get some movie tickets or lottery of something small, but basically it's their time if they are interested. So we need to find always new ways to motivate people.
So the other part of the question was, how do you motivate citizens to submit their own ideas? How do you publish the calls?
Exactly, that's good. Basically the open call is for companies, so that's a slightly different audience, but the way that we motivate people is that we are always present if there's a resident evening, any participatory event by the city. We as a lab are always there with our own poster or roll-up discussing with people. Then we are present in the local social media groups. The neighborhood group has something around 5,000 people, so we post their stuff and tell about our activities. We do have this dedicated website for residents, this Jokela. So basically those are the main channels. It's social media, the website for residents, and the physical events. The way that we activate them is quite familiar stuff to you. I imagine it's workshops with residents and electronic surveys, now some virtual workshops as there's a corona outbreak. So workshops, surveys, interviews, the traditional stuff.
Usual suspects. Okay, maybe the last one now. From the organizational point of view, we have a question about Forum Virium. This is a very interesting concept, so not many municipalities have such a devoted municipal body or a company that would be responsible for such activities. So if you can answer when it was established and maybe some of your own thoughts about working for Forum Virium as well.
I don't know the detailed history. Apology, at least I cannot present it now, but it was the company was formed around a bit more than 10 years ago, and then you had several owners, big companies like Nokia, Yle, national broadcasting company, who wanted to speed up digitalization. So it was a joint effort, but in the course of time, City of Helsinki took more ownership, and now we are fully owned. And we are basically a project organization or project machine that in a more agile way take these new kind of initiatives. I think we are quite favorably positioned because we are in a way neutral. We operate between public and private sector, so we are not really getting the complaints that people usually throw to the city. So in a way we are a neutral actor. In a way we are a city, but still we are not city in a traditional sense. And then we are building up these living lab activities with the residents. So we are in a way in a good position in between the city, the companies, and the residents. So basically maneuvering there in between is quite a good opportunity, let's say.
Thank you. Because you touched upon the pandemic situation we are in now, so the question is, how did the latest situation and the COVID-19 experience modified your approach to the agile piloting? Has there been some learnings?
We haven't had pilots. How to say this? Yeah, it has had an impact. We selected these two data pilots, the micro mobility thing and the traffic analysis, and the other one we had to postpone. And for the other ones we will experiment, but I do imagine that this situation will have a bit of impact on the results because it's a special time. So, but yeah, we had to postpone some of the activities. The other thing where it had impact on that, we were planning to make a new open call in the spring and implement the pilots in the autumn, but now we postpone it so that people can leave their proposals after the summer holidays and finalize it according to the corona situation of that time. So basically we cannot search pilot in the spring and then it might select them and then they are totally irrelevant in the autumn. So we have postponed also the open call.
Yeah, it's clear that this situation has implication on all of our mobility patterns and also on the issues we deal at work with. So hopefully you'd be able to resume the piloting, and also our own partner cities and HUPMOBILE are able to proceed with with their own mini pilots in the framework of the project. But I think we will finish the Q&A session in here. If there will be more questions, we can also take them up if there's a time in the end of this. Thank you, Janne, so much for your presentation and for the answers. We will move on now to the last block of our webinar today, and we'll perhaps have more discussion later. So, as I mentioned, we are now moving on to the HUPMOBILE examples of ITS piloting, and the first one comes from the city of Tallinn. Our speaker is Liivar Luts, who is a project manager for the city transport department, and he will be presenting adaptive traffic lights and mini pilot intended for the city of Tallinn. So the floor is yours, Liivar. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So hi to everyone. So my name is Liivar Luts, and I'm working for the city of Tallinn. I have been dealing with very many European projects, and I'm mainly working for projects related Tallinn and Helsinki connection. So it's very natural. My position is very natural after Janne's presentation, as he have brought some issues which is related with the traffic and people's movement between two capital cities. So I totally understand the problem what Finnish neighbors have, and we have a similar case basically. Before I will explain what we are initially planning to do in this project, I will give some insight about background and where the city of Tallinn is located and what kind of issues and challenges we have. So first of all, in the left in the presentation, you can see that city of Tallinn is like a butterfly shape. So it's surrounded by the Gulf of Finland in the north and the Lake Ülemiste in the south. And as you can see that we have the bottleneck. So, and the bottleneck is basically the city center. So it means that the bottleneck is 2 kilometers of the length. It means that it's one hand it's opportunity, but second it's like big challenge for us. Why? Because almost 2/3 of traffic volumes want to pass the bottleneck from east to west and west to east between the sub-districts of the city of Tallinn. So it's a huge problem for us. And also the south and west connection, meaning that as you can see in the right hand, you can see the passenger and other cars, vehicles commuting or passing the city of Tallinn, going further to the Finland, Helsinki, and vice versa. So we have like more than 9 million passengers, more than 1.3 million passenger cars, and a bit less than 400,000 heavy good vehicles. So, and as you can see in the map, that they will basically pass the city center. Okay, we have the road for the roundabout, but still that's big issue for us. One hand, it's good that the port is in the city center. On the other hand, in terms of managing the traffic flows, it's a big challenge for us. And as Janne mentioned, that there are lots of traffic commuting between Tallinn and Helsinki. So the situation is so that if we are doing something, then it directly affects the situation in the Finnish side and vice versa. So in that sense, we have to be united and do things together in order to be effective. Further, yes, about the background, also in terms of urban mobility, as you can see in the left picture, we have very centric street, for example, which is basically in the city center, and it's almost 3+3 road, meaning that there are lots of traffic, and most likely, if it's not today, hopefully in the future, these streets will be reshaped, meaning that there are less space for cars and more space for pedestrians, public transport, cyclists, etc. So it means that there will be, for the cars and for the trucks, there will be a narrowing the roads. And also in the right side, you can see a new Reidi road or Reidi street, which was built, which was ready in last year, and this is mainly for serving the traffic to the port and out from the port. So it's also very important for us that the trucks and the commuters between Tallinn and Helsinki, they don't choose the city center road, but they will use Reidi road in order to leave the city or enter the port area. So in that sense, we have quite the big mobility issues regarding the urban mobility and also the cargo flows and passengers between Tallinn and Helsinki. So in that sense, we have to come up with a good solution or try to figure it out what we can do best out of it when for example, the streets will be narrowed and there is less space for cars. What we can do in terms of adaptive traffic management and more dedicated, for example, the traffic lights. We are in the beginning of the process. That's what I want to say first, and these are the actions what we want to have in this project. But I will just briefly explain what we are planning to do in this case. And before going to the mini pilot, I will just also describe the actions beforehand. So we are in a close cooperation with from the City Tallinn side together with ITL Digital Lab with Ralf, and together we will combine pre-feasibility study for adaptive traffic light system. And also we integrate the mini pilot there in order to validate the results of the study in actual real traffic situation. More specific, we plan to evaluate the effect when the adaptive system is implemented and throughout the city. So the study also includes benchmark of the best practices in adaptive management in nearby cities. What would be the cost and how much impact it would have? It's very important to understand. And also, pre-feasibility study must include the traffic modeling to evaluate and assess the impact of various adaptive traffic system in the city environment. Also, in this case, we aim to get drafted the terms of reference to proceed afterwards in the project with the design competition of the system. So this is like the next step. The further goal after project duration is to apply additional funds from internal Estonian state, from the Estonian state in order to implement these actions, meaning the pre-feasibility study and the mini pilot will be the basis to apply the money for the next steps. Adaptive traffic management through the traffic lights can be increase traffic flow in dedicated sections up to 15%. So it's a lot. Meaning that just playing with the lights. As I mentioned before, in a situation where streets will be reshaped, there are less rooms for cars and the public transport as well in that sense, so the traffic volumes will be affected. Then the adaptive traffic management plays a very important role in this case. So it's very important to highlight that we are not so much interested about so-called black box solution. So, okay, we can have companies, for example, Siemens, who can provide the system, but it's always very, very expensive, and we as a city, we are not able to look very detailed into it, as they just provide us full service, and basically that's it. So, however, we understand that adaptive traffic light traffic volumes or traffic light systems is not very commonly used in nearby cities. So it's quite difficult to start, but we will hope that we can manage to do. So in timelines, we are still in the beginning. So we are compiling at the moment the terms of reference of the pre-feasibility study, and call will be available somewhere hopefully in June, July this year. And just to conclude, the study is very useful for the project and also very useful for the surrounding cities, that there will be a demonstration in the urban environment and with real data and with real traffic solution. So that's all about from my side. Yeah, if you have questions, then we can proceed later on.
Thank you for your presentation. So from here we move westwards to the free Hanseatic city of Hamburg, and we meet Heike Bunte from Department of Transport Projects. And we are going to hear about mobility microhubs in the district of Altona in Hamburg. How, Heike? The floor is yours. Welcome.
Hello, good morning. Here's Heike Bunte from Hamburg, from the borough of Altona. The borough of Altona is situated directly in the very west of the city of Hamburg. It is a mixed district with many peoples from all kinds of cultures, and we have altogether 13 quarters within the whole district of Altona. Apart from that, we have a huge densification here in Altona, plus lots of commuters coming outside from other areas or going through the districts. And moreover, it's very difficult that we also get all the commuters from the so-called green countryside, and everybody is going through the district in order to work in the city. This causes a lot of problems with traffic. We have a high number of individual motorized car drivers, and also a mixture of industrial private traffic. So altogether, it's a vivid area. Residential areas altogether have short distances to cover. For example, we have good access to long and short railway system, and it is very good here to go over the river Elbe because it is directly here next to our district. So as you can see, and as I've already mentioned, we also want to set up here a whole system of micro depots, which means for us that we started already at the beginning of the year in January 2020 to set up the first micro hub here in the district of Altona. We decided to do it at the main station here, because it is really not only a station, it is a city within a city. The station has several levels with shopping zones, sport clubs, hotels, and so on. It offers possibilities for bike and car sharing, and you can use other traffic modes. So it is really the core, the heart of the district, and very vivid. So that is why we thought it's brilliant to set up here the first micro hub. And to be honest, if you can look at the next slide, it was also a very simple question or idea to set up this micro hub here. We have a huge number of increasing of goods deliveries by parcels, and as I mentioned before, Altona is a very packed district with many traffic problems. And in order to get it started, of course, the delivery with the last mile delivery with cargo bikes is a very handy and, so to say, experienced solution to reduce at least traffic in residential areas. And if you look at the station on the left hand, so to say, and right hand of the station or east-west, there are bigger residential areas as well. It's not only the core shopping zones, but also residential areas. As you can see, the station of Altona has also a huge underground world. Of course, at the moment, this model or this situation covers only B2B deliverers, so business to business, because public is not allowed to go there, and we have other limitations. So the first step or the first decision for us was then, okay, let's give it a start. We try this business to business model, and then with that, or from there, we want to make add-ons. So for example, we are really trying to set up multifunctional purposes, combining recycling materials plus parcels, etc., in order also on a parallel level to stimulate circular economy. And what we discovered is that, for example, startups were much more flexible to fulfill this principle of circular economy, and they could react much more flexible on different options and new models of last mile deliveries, because they act around the area in a very quick way, and they are much more flexible in terms of thinking these new models than, for example, the really big and huge global players. So we also want to add value to startups and to identify other delivery models than the standard B2B or B2C models. But last but not least, we face really the biggest problem in order to attract new locations. It is extremely difficult in such an area here with a high density to find suitable locations and to set up new micro hubs. For example, the latest development, and this is maybe, I don't know whether it's positive or negative, also related to Corona. Here next to our main station, we have a residential area. And in this residential area, we were supposed to set up the second micro hub, which is roughly 2.5 kilometers away from the main station. And in this area, they're supposed to open also a cafe. So at the moment, of course, everybody hesitates to open a cafe. So the idea is to, in order to fill it with life and to involve the residents, and now I'm coming back to Janne, we're thinking to get up a pop-up micro hub. So we are working on that. Thank you very much. This was a quick and short introduction into our plans here. Thank you.
Thank you, Heike. Thank you for presenting Hamburg's plans. I would like to remind that the chat is still open for some questions also to our partner cities. Hopefully we have time to address them, but if not, we promise to send you answers afterwards. And From Hamburg, we continue to Turku, where Juha Jokela works as a development manager at the Urban Environment Division, and he's ready to present the traffic study plans to be implemented in the city. Juha, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I work as a traffic planner for the city of Turku, and Turku is a city of nearly 200 inhabitants. The region is a bit over 300,000, and our characteristic is that the river runs through the city, so there are limited crossing possibilities for motor traffic especially. And then there was a city center vision presented 3 years ago, and the vision is to develop city center into a nicer, more modern European city center with good pedestrian areas. So there were 2 bridges that have quite a lot of motor traffic at the moment were given to pedestrians, cyclists, and public transportation. Below you can see one of these bridges, and it created a strong debate on car restrictions in the city center. We estimate that quite a lot of this car traffic in these bridges have a lot of through traffic going through the city center and not only coming to the city center. So there is quite wide consensus that the through traffic can be and should be directed elsewhere, but we don't have the exact amounts how much there is, and actually the definition of through traffic is also pretty difficult to define. So our goals are to support decision making based on knowledge, and how to develop traffic arrangements in the city center in the longer period and also in a shorter time period with, for example, some pilots and something like this. But to have a knowledge on the current situation is important, so the decisions are not based only on feelings but real data and knowledge. We hope to support moving towards more sustainable modes with solutions, and to move as much through traffic as possible from the city center to other routes. Okay, and so this is the situation at the moment. So the red streets and also a few of the yellow ones are the entrance routes to the city center, which also work as through routes to go through the city center, which is basically the yellow area there, a bit larger than that. And so there is the river running through, and you can see now the 2 bridges, Tuomiokirkkosilta and Auransilta, which in the city center vision are given to public transportation, pedestrians, and cyclists. So they are, if they would be given to these, they would widen the pedestrian area, and they would especially in the future help public transportations and also cyclists' conditions to reach city center. There is not a lot of congestion at the moment in Turku, but we are growing about a bit less than 2,000 people per year. So in the longer run, the congestion will rise, congestion of car traffic, and if we don't have good conditions for cyclists and public transportation, they will stay in the same congestion, or they will not do their trips with sustainable modes at all due to the bad conditions. Okay, so basically we need to give space from cars to other modes. So our idea for the mini pilot is to do a registration plate study on through traffic, and the primary goal is to support decision making with gathering information on how much through traffic exists through the city center, the yellow area in this picture, and what are the routes of through traffic. And then to help moving towards more sustainable modes, with the registration plate information, we could probably find out if there are some areas that are not using sustainable modes and marketing public transportation there, and also planning park and ride locations. And then one possibility is that we monitor with these possible restrictions on car traffic with cameras, how to get information on where the camera should be and what are the definitions, for example, for the true traffic, to help monitor restrictions in the future. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Juha. The last presenter will be now from Riga. It's a short flight from Turku to Riga, at least used to be when we were still flying. And our next presenter is Inga Pelša. She works as a senior project manager at the Municipal Energy Agency, and she will tell us about the ITS Minipilot for the Freeport of Riga. Welcome, Inga, and the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me, and it works well. Despite we had this morning some challenges in Riga city with the electricity due to the heavy storms we had last night, but now it's all fine. It works. So I am representing the Riga Energy Agency. It's a municipal agency of the city of Riga, mainly responsible for development of the Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan. And we have a small team which manages a number of European projects funded by Horizon 2020 program and Interreg Baltic Sea region program. And HUPMOBILE is being one of those projects, and I am the project coordinator for HUPMOBILE in Riga. So we have chosen the Freeport of Riga as our project's pilot territory, just because it is indeed a backbone of our city's economy, with a total area of more than 6,000 hectares and 400 hectares still available for new development. It is a multi-functional port handling almost all types of cargo, with a total cargo handling capacity up to 64 million tons per year. And although for the moment it seems less feasible, but the passenger transportation is developing as well, and it will soon resume, of course. So Riga Freeport, as I said, as backbone of the city's economy, is located on both banks of the river crossing our city, stretching up to 15 kilometers and deeply into the city center, a very city center. And so it's also creating a number of inconveniences and influencing cities' life and quality of life. So we joined the project, the HUPMOBILE project, with the aim to reduce ecological footprint from the port-related transport activities, to relieve the city center from the heavy port traffic, and as well to integrate innovations in the port logistics. So as one of the strategic objectives of the Freeport of Riga development program states that the Freeport aims to be developed according to the operating principles of the smart port. So consequently, the intelligent transport solutions are a natural part of this development. And we also joined the idea to realize the ITS Minipilot for the Freeport, an innovative smart mobility solution aimed to improve the logistics in the port and around the port. But as it was stated by one of the presenters earlier, that we are looking for city-based mobility challenges to be addressed. So we have defined in consultations with the Freeport Authority as well as drawing conclusions from their discussions with the representatives of communities surrounding the port area. We have defined earlier three possible themes or mobility challenges to be addressed. It is management of cargo, road transport flow, which can be very campaign-based. It's not very stable. It depends on incoming and outgoing traffic in the port, but which uses the same access roads as the city does. And so we have to find some ways how to better plan and address to manage those flows. The other option would be linked with passenger mobility management, as currently we have some issues for passengers arriving at the port of Riga, so to find the city, to find along. So there some kind of mobility point application could be installed. Just for instance, I can let you know that next week we are opening the first mobility point in city of Riga within another project we are realizing within the project Cities Multimodal. And we aim to set up a network of mobility points, and we might look for some solution also linked in with HUPMOBILE project. And the third theme could be efficiency of data flow. We have lots of data available nowadays, but somehow to use it more efficiently and solving some of the mobility challenges would be good. So we at the beginning we were looking for traditional procurement as being a municipal body. Of course, we have to be very concerned about the use of public money and justify well its use and so on. But now we are very inspired by our Estonian colleagues, and we are looking into this, testing this innovation challenge or agile piloting process. So with the criteria, as was mentioned earlier by Ralf, innovation, feasibility, or scalability, resources involved, and impact of the pilot. So we are still in the beginning of the process, and we are looking forward to this new experience, and most probably by the end of the year we will have some more ideas to share with you. Thanks. That's it from me.
Thank you, Inga. We are very well on time. I think we can still uptake a few questions for the discussion, especially to our earlier presenters, as the audience had time to think a little bit about what was presented. So I have one question here to Liivar about the tendering procedure that you are planning in Tallinn. As we saw in Helsinki pilot, some of the providers were internationally based as well. Do you foresee that also international companies, not only Estonian, will be participating in your mini pilots tendering?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what I can say, as the resources for the mini pilot is not so big, so we can have a B2 process, but that's for sure that we are lacking experience in Estonia. So in that sense, it should be more wider than just internal Estonian companies who can participate, or researchers organizations who can participate in this case. So most likely we have to address who can be the potential interested companies, and then we can contact them and start to negotiate with them.
Thank you. So this is a shout out to all of our participants who might be representing companies that would be interested in participating. Please follow HUPMOBILE project and City of Tallinn's announcements regarding this. Thank you, Liivar. And one question to Heike as well. The question is whether Altona district in Hamburg is the first one to apply this approach to micro hubs, or are you aware of some other successful piloting that took place in the city of Hamburg or in other municipalities in Germany?
Well, actually, of course, the whole city of Hamburg is working on a whole network which we would like to develop for the whole city. But HUPMOBILE was really a good start to test the first one and to develop and to work with also the other districts together. And on an upper level, there is, of course, a kind of master plan for the whole city. Yeah, so it's not only us, but of course, for a district itself, and for the density and for the high population we have here, there is a huge pressure on the districts. This is maybe the reason why we here in Altona put a bit more pressure on the whole situation and try to foster and try to develop a whole net of micro and nano hubs.
Sounds very good, and we hope Hamburg and Altona.
Sorry,
Yes.
and of course, sorry, I forgot the second part of the question. And of course, there are other cities here in Germany, like Berlin, Munich, Cologne, and so on, and Frankfurt. And of course, they also develop the whole system as well. And we have already really good examples here in Germany for micro hubs and delivery for the last mile with cargo bikes. Many things and many projects go on.
Thank you. Thank you, Heike. One more maybe like concluding comment is regarding the Turku case. I guess people are still thinking about Inga's presentation. And firstly, Janne commented that they have similar things going on in Helsinki, so Turku is most welcome to stay in touch with Forum Virium to discuss maybe some commonalities or common activities or synergies between the activities, and also slightly futuristic question, because I live myself in Turku and our Commission Secretariat is located in Turku. So the question is whether Turku at any point aspires to have a car-free center, like many European cities and capitals are striving for these days. So Juha, what is your opinion on the matter? Maybe not that whole yellow area that you had marked in your presentation, but at least some small part of it.
Yeah, the goal is not to ban the cars from the yellow area totally, because it's a really large area. But yeah, I think we are moving into that direction, that people are aware of these nice things, that city centers that are in Europe, and the real problem is that there are the current situation is difficult to change because somebody likes it and they make a lot of noise. So the goal is to have enough real knowledge about how it really works to really make a good decision. So it's a matter of wanting and knowing the impacts of these actions.
Thank you, Juha. We also hope that the study will be successful and Turku would be able to develop its strategies further. There is a question for Riga, so I knew it, that people are thinking about it. So the question, Inga, is how Riga will be measuring the reduction of CO2 levels in the pilot area, if you have had some considerations about it already.
Well, no, I will not be able to give you exact examples for the moment because we are, as I said, we are just in the beginning. We have defined for the mini pilot, we have defined the mobility challenges to be addressed, but it's premature yet to talk about the solutions and applications to be applied. So I'm certain that Freeport Authority itself does all the measurements and ensure this. That we are more focused on let's say solutions to be visible for the citizens, for the residents, not so much on the port's activities as such. More linked with this public involvement aspect, if I may say so. Yeah, this is our primary approach for the project.
But hopefully any kind of mobility improvement solutions will contribute to the city's carbon neutrality plans and goals in general. So this is most welcome, and it's great that HUPMOBILE project can contribute to this city strategies as well. Okay, yes. Thank you. As I mentioned at the beginning, we remind once again that the recording and the materials of the webinar will be distributed to all the registered participants. And thank you once again to our speakers, Ralf, Janne, Liivar, Heike, Juha, and Inga, for your interesting presentations, and Maria for the technical support. And lastly, thank you to the audience for you to give us your attention and to participate in the interaction. We hope you will be returning to partake in the UBC Talks after the holidays, and have an amazing summer afterwards. Thank you.